Hey guys, Doug Walker here. Something I've noticed is that whenever I do sort of these lists of like my top 10 favorites or just whatever movies I like and everyone else dislikes and vice versa, people really seem to like that stuff, and they seem to like it more when it's not scripted. So I decided I'm gonna do a few more of these, just sort of general chat about what I personally like and don't like in terms of movies and shows, inspirations, all that good stuff. And for the most part, it's going to be off the cuff. I mean, there's going to be a little bit of editing, but so it's sort of like a semi-blog. And if you like it, keep watching them. I'm probably going to be doing a few more of them. So with that said, I am going to do, because a lot of people keep asking, I'm going to do my top favorite comedic influences. These are the people and creations that really influence my sense of humor now, pretty much. And once again, I'm putting it all together, and it was going to be a top 10, but damn it, I can't keep it a top 10, so I had to go top 15. It's my list, so I can do whatever I want. So these are the top 15 people, shouldn't say, top 15 comedic influences that had the biggest impact on me growing up. Number 15. Robin Williams. Now, I don't even think I gotta talk about why this guy is so good. It's his improv technique. It is fantastic. You see him at stand-up, you're never gonna get the same show twice. I love his energy. I love how fast he is. I love how he loves interacting with people. There's a sense that he's not afraid of anything when he goes up there to perform. But what I also love, I do have sort of this soft spot for sort of the vaudeville delivery, if it's done well. I mean, a lot of times it's done really bad, but the comedians are sort of keeping it alive and doing that delivery well. I really respect, because it is sort of going back to the roots where a lot of these performing comedians came from. So I'm, as you know, I'm not always a fan of his movie choices, but I think he can act, and he can act very well. What else can I even say about him? He's an improv genius. I mean, he just goes on an interview, and he won't shut up with the jokes. His life is just comedy, throwing comedy at you. But at the same time, he seems very, very intelligent, too. Like, when you actually get him to calm down and you talk to him for real, he seems like a really smart guy, and he seems really intelligent. So, I enjoy his jokes. They're very smart, very quick, love his energy. What else can you say about him? It's Robin Williams. Number 14. Dave Chappelle. Now, even though this guy sort of came in later in my whatever comedic development, whatever you want to call it, he really did have an influence on me, because I think it's sort of a perfect mix between really shocking humor and cartoony humor, and I really like that mix. I like sort of the mix of the really adult and really childish, and he brings those two together so well. His stand-up's good, but like everybody, I fell in love with the Chappelle Show. And there's just something about him. I think even he said, like, one of his biggest influences is Bugs Bunny. And you can see that. He really, when you see the way he says a line, or again, he sort of has that wink to the camera and that smile. Shock humor today, of course, has to be very adult and very risque, but I like it when people combine it with something from our youth, something very cartoony. And he does that so much. And you know the other thing with the Chappelle Show, the timing is great. The editing, phenomenal. I don't know if you ever really concentrate on the editing in that show, but it's some of the best comedic editing you'll ever see. They know just when to cut, just when to go to the next shot, just when to hold on a shot long enough. I mean, I don't know if he had any saying that. He probably did, but that's part of what made that show just so good, is the editing was just so crisp and so fast, and knew exactly when to stop, knew exactly how long to go. So, and I also like the idea of combining the stand-up with comedic sketches. I thought it was a very clever way of doing things. I think a lot of comedians wish they could do that, actually. So, again, very straightforward. People love him. Dave Chappelle. Number 13. Animaniacs. Okay, yeah, you've heard me go on and on about this show. I mean, it's practically pointless to talk about it, but let's talk about it a little bit. Premise is great. The timing, wonderful. I love the fact that they're really trying to recreate the Looney Tunes, but sort of mix it with the variety show, and that's something that I think is a big deal. Variety shows used to be really, really big. I mean, Carol Burnett, who was wonderful, actually would be on this list if maybe she came in my life a little younger, but you know, that's a wonderful show. Laugh-In and a lot of these other shows. The only one we really have still, and even then it's sort of loose, is SNL, which still has sketches and songs, you know, but it's, well, there's 2 song performances, and it's pretty much just these sketches. They all have a certain amount of time. There's not much variety to it. Animaniacs seemed to really bring back the variety show, for kids at least. And it was really nice. A lot of things didn't have to be an exact amount long. It could, of course, sort of segue into whatever. And what's great about Animaniacs is also what's great about something like Family Guy is that they really take advantage of the fact that it's animation. It's not like, hey, this is just a live-action sketch show but with cartoons. I mean, they take advantage of the fact that you can do anything with animation. And even the setups, I mean, 2 little mice that want to take over the world. I mean, you can't do that in live action, or at least it wouldn't be as funny. So, you know, or the old cartoon character that knows all the tricks, you know, with Slappy and all that stuff. I mean, these are just great. These characters are great. They practically seem alive. And the timing they have is wonderful. The jokes are great. Great variety of jokes. Both very childish, just straight to the kids, and then very adult, straight to the adults. Look at the top 11 nowadays Animaniac moments, you know what I'm talking about. And, yeah, huge influence on me growing up, definitely. Never missed an episode growing up. I mean, just really, really took a lot from their humor. So, like I said, as if I haven't said enough, Animaniacs. Number 12. Bill Murray. I can't explain what it is. There's just something about the way he performs, the way he talks, the way he acts. He is so comfortable with what he is, and he also enjoys it so much. It just happens to be a jerk. You know, and most jerks, when you see them, and I love these jerks, you know, are uncomfortable. They're very unsatisfying. They're, you know, it shows all the weaknesses. Bill Murray is just so cool with how smug he is, and just how funny he is. And now I'm talking about sort of the character he played. I don't know if the actual person is like that. I hear he is. I don't know. But yeah, the people he plays in these movies are just so much fun. And I think there's something where even though he's a jerk, he's so relaxed and he's so comfortable with it that you become comfortable with it as well. So I haven't seen him do much stand-up or anything, and even on SNL, you're always sort of aware you're watching Bill Murray, which is both an advantage and a disadvantage. If you like Bill Murray, you'll really, really like watching his stuff. But if it's something like Jeff Goldblum, where you see it once and you're done, oh, you're just going to see that over and over and over, it's not going to work. So, I mean, luckily, I really enjoy Bill Murray. I like seeing him in these movies. You know, Ghostbusters, Lost in Translation, you know, these are great movies. And yeah, I like I said, just a comfortableness with how smug he is. And I think when you're really confident in who you are and the jokes you're saying, it brings other people in. I think he's very, very good at that. So, again, sort of a no-brainer. A lot of people enjoy him. I enjoy him too. Number 11. Rowan Atkinson. Now, here's the thing about Rowan Atkinson. I like him more for some of his stuff that's not as popular. I like him more for Blackadder. Some of you have seen that, you know, the Hugh Laurie, you know, Dr. House, he came from there. I actually cannot watch House because of the show Blackadder. I keep thinking Hugh Laurie's gonna, you know, dress up in drag or something like that, because that's what he did in one episode. So, but anyway, Rowan Atkinson, I like him more as the jerk. The Mr. Bean stuff, he's sort of a jerk too, but it's sort of a naive, innocent jerk. It's a little child, basically. And that's very funny too. I like his Mr. Bean stuff, but the stuff where I think he shines the best is when he's this, you know, just miserable, intelligent, but just miserable human being, never gets what he wants, and makes everybody suffer because of it. and just so pompous, but also, again, very intelligent, and he can make you sympathize with the fact that he deserves more, but for some reason he's not getting it, and it's probably attitude. It's probably because of his attitude that things don't fall in his lap, and he's always working for the idiot. And that's just such a great character. On top of that, Mr. Bean, the physical performance. And that's what I like about Rowan Atkinson. You have, you know, if you want character, you go to Blackadder. You know, you go, that's the great character development. If you want the physical comedy, you go to Mr. Bean. And I think that's great that you have those two extremes, you know, back to back, and they really work out well. So I really enjoy Rowan Atkinson's work, even in something like Rat Race, which was almost sort of a repeat of Mr. Bean. There's such this joy and this innocence. I love the fact he can go extreme miserable with Mr. Bean and extreme positive and, you know, naive and wide-eyed and stuff, and still make it funny. It's very hard to make positive characters funny, even though you can sort of argue there's a lot of negativity to him because he is like a little kid. But what people usually like about Mr. Bean is when he's very positive. Like when he was playing with the nativity scene in the Christmas episode with the dinosaur and stuff like that. He's not doing this to be mean, he's having fun. You know, he doesn't know any better, and I think people really relate to how excited he is and how he sees them like action figures. So I really like Rowan Atkinson because he can get both the really negative and the really positive and make them both very, very funny. So that's a real good talent there. Number 10. Daily Show and the Colbert Report. I should just call it Comedy Central News. But both these guys, in a sense, they sort of do the same thing, so I put them both in the same category, and both have had a really large influence. Particularly on the Nostalgia Critic. I think with Jon Stewart, I'm really impressed with how Jon Stewart has sort of become like this voice of reason, even though he does this comedy show. And it's perfect, because with comedy, you can, if you start making really strong points, people say, yeah, he's making a really strong point. If you make a point that doesn't work, you just say, oh, well, I'm a dummy. Comedy. I'm supposed to be a dumb comedian. So it's actually sort of foolproof if you do it right. And Jon Stewart has figured that out. Which is really great. Now, some people complain that, you know, he makes too many strong, you know, movements for, you know, his side, which he is very left, people, come on. I mean, for the people who's like, no, he's down the middle. No, he's very left. He will make jokes at the left, which is great. I saw that interview with Obama at the end of last year, and that was a great interview. But yeah, they're pretty left, you know, but it doesn't matter. They will still make fun of both sides, which I do really respect. But I think there's something, again, he's one of the few people that can look at the camera and laugh and sort of, you know, do the shrug thing, and it works for some reason. There's something about, he obviously shows how intelligent he is, and he obviously shows even though I think he is very left, he wants to give both sides sort of a chance. You know, he acknowledges that there's problems with both sides. So, like I said, he gets a lot of credibility. And even when a joke fails, he has fun with it, and he can have other people joke with it. You know, in a sense, he never takes it too seriously. He's always ready to fall back into a stupid joke, which I really like. Colbert Report. I like him for similar reasons, but the main one is that he's created this character, and it's incredible how much he sticks to his character, both written and improvised. It's phenomenal. I mean, I've never seen anyone stick to a character so consistently for so long and so well. And the way he uses the backwards logic to always bring it back to he's always right is so well done. And you can tell it's not just the writers, though of course they have a very, they do a lot of it. When he's talking with somebody, you know, in an interview and stuff, I mean, just how quick he is to have these responses and always work it back to he's correct is so brilliant. And I can't think of any other comedian I've seen that has been that good at it. Maybe if another comedian decided to take that on, like if Robin Williams may decide to do that, possibly he could do it, but Colbert is just born to do this, and he does it so wonderfully, and it's very, very well done. He does it very, very well. So both these shows have, like, some of the best writers. I can't believe how consistently good these writers are, but they both have really good main talents. If I had to choose which one is more talented, probably Colbert, because like I said, he is sticking to this character no matter what. Stewart is great, but again, he does the, you know, sort of the fight for the people, you know, the voice of reason and stuff like that, which is wonderful, fantastic, but it does take away a little bit from the comedy. So, but again, you get some very good points out of it. So they're both equally wonderful, but I think Colbert is maybe a little bit more talent. But both are fantastic, and both do their job incredibly well. If you watch Nostalgia Critic, you can tell I take a lot from both of them. So, yeah, really good stuff. Number 9. The Zucker Brothers and Jim Abrams. Now, everybody always says, the Zucker Brothers, the Zucker Brother movies. They forget Jim Abrams was a big part of that, too. And if you want proof of that, when they split, when the Zucker Brothers split and Jim Abrams went and did his stuff, too, you know, none of them quite hit that level of, you know, hilarity. It may be Rat Race, but, you know, none of them hit the hilarity of, like, you know, Airplane or Hot Shots or anything. The one that came close to keeping that style, though, was Jim Abrams with Mafia, which is sort of underrated. It's not that bad a film. It doesn't totally work, but it's not that bad. It's got some really memorable jokes in there, and that's the closest to sort of the formula they created with, you know, the Hot Shot movies and Naked Gun. So I put those three together, and something about, again, it's sort of that cartoony style mixed with naughty humor. I'm a big fan of visual jokes, like, even the ones that I know are stupid. For example, in Mafia, there's a scene where this guy, this gangster, he's trying to shoot this kid, he's in the forest, and he shoots the gun, it hits the tree, and the tree goes, and falls over dead. Laugh my ass off. I don't know why. Maybe because there's a silly part of me that wants to see that. You know, I think maybe because as children we were raised on cartoons, we have a more active imagination with visual jokes. So when we do see a visual joke, in the back of our head we're thinking, wouldn't it be funny if this happened? They sort of do that. They go with the jokes that you sort of want to see happen. When you're watching a movie, and, you know, a serious movie, and sometimes you get the giggles, there's some visuals you want to see, and I think they tap into that. And I think they tap into it really, really well. So, and I like the fact that parodies now, and this is including, you know, my work, when we do satires, we sort of directly point at what we're making fun of. For example, like in Scary Movie 3, Charlie Sheen says, you know, when they're satirizing signs, he says, what, they can master space travel, but they can't get through a door? You know, that's directly attacking signs. In something like in Hot Shots, it's a little bit more subtle. Like, this can exist on its own. You don't have to have seen Top Gun or Rambo or anything like that. You know, the jokes they make, it's satirizing, but it's also self-contained. And I do have a respect for that. I think that's usually the much better way to go, and the movies usually last a lot better, because people forget the details of some of these other films. But even as a kid, I didn't see Top Gun, you know, as a kid, but I could see Hot Shots and laugh and still find it funny. So, big respect for those guys. If you haven't seen the Kentucky Fried Movie, that's like probably their first film. It's just a bunch of sketches, but very funny stuff. A little perverted, but very, very funny stuff. And these three were just so great. I love to see them get back together again and do some sort of movie project. Maybe they can do like Lord of the Rings or something. Why? How come nobody's... You know, the satire movies are so dead right now. I mean, they can really bring it back and they can really be funny, because there's some good movie franchises that can be satirized. You know, the Star Wars prequels, the Harry Potters, the Lord of the Rings. I mean, franchises are huge right now. Why aren't they making good satires? You know, instead of just making the satire before they see the film. You know, just spend some time on it. Make it funny. They can still work. Everyone's saying it's dead. No, you can make it work. You know, just have fun with it. So, yeah, that's all I gotta say about that. Number 8. South Park. Now, these guys are a huge influence because they're still going. They're still going, and they're doing it with very little. Really think about it. The animation is still awful. It's awful animation. But it still has good timing. What they're saying is funny. And they're not taking any prisoners. They it seems like they really don't care what anybody thinks. They're just going to say their opinion, even if it's really unpopular. A lot of times it is popular, but there's a good chunk of the time where it is not popular, and they just go that route. And it's great because it doesn't seem like they have to throw much money into it, so whatever. If an episode doesn't do well or loses money or something, they still got a ton. You know, it's such a big hit. And I really admire that direct honesty, that direct, here's our opinion, here's what we see. Do you see this too? Because this is what we're seeing. If not, we're going to have fun with it anyway. And they do it so well. I really like the fact these... the character I really love the most in that show, I'm sure everybody loves him the most, is Cartman. Because he is such a horrible, despicable creation. And the fact that he's a kid just makes it even more funny, because it just makes him even more... sort of, you don't want to pay attention to him, like, you know, there's no need to pay attention to him, he's all this just this emotional little complainer. But the fact that when he does get power, when he does become powerful, I love stuff like that. I love it when the person who is not important, doesn't say anything of importance, is just a total jerk, gets all this power. And there's a lot of times where that's happened. So, really love that character. And I love the fact you know, and some of it does become dated, but what's interesting about South Park is that even when they satirize something that becomes dated, their satires are so funny that people actually remember the event because of the satire. And that's real talent. That's really, really good. And I see myself... I don't usually think of South Park that much. Like, I don't usually quote a reference in my head or anything like that, but I do find myself realizing, yeah, it's in there. It's really embedded in there, and I don't think about it that much. In fact, usually I'm like, oh, South Park, what? I don't want to watch that lowbrow. But whenever I watch it, hilarious. Always something funny in there. So it's very funny how that works out. How there's this, you know, incredibly immature comedy that's going on, but there's also this great social satire that they're just directly aiming at, and a good chunk of the time I do agree with them, and even if I don't, it's still good food for thought. It's still fun to listen to. So really like these guys. I like them because they keep going, they're still fresh, they're still funny, and they do it with very, very little, which, you know, for us is a big influence, you know. I mean, we don't throw, you know, a shitload of money into our productions. You know, we keep it very simple. We're hoping that's the content that makes it, you know, still last. So but like I said, I really admire the fact that they're still around and they're still doing very, very well. And it's still very, very fresh, and you still can't predict what they're going to do or what they're going to say. And that's really great. We can only hope to be that awesome. Number 7. Mel Brooks. Again, sort of the semi-vaudeville thing going on. I really enjoy how sometimes it becomes a little too vaudeville, I'm not gonna lie. You know, some of these jokes are like, really? You did that joke? But again, sort of part of the fun. You know, he will say, yeah, we'll do this. You know, I don't care if it's lame. I'm gonna do it because I like it. And I think you do sense that passion in a lot of his movies. I think the only point where I started to kind of lose it, I liked Robin Hood Men in Tights enough, but then as soon as the Dracula one came around, I'm like, this is bad, I don't like that. But before that, oh no, even after that, the Broadway producers here was very, very good. Didn't like the movie too much. I'm not doing an old versus new of that. I mean, in terms of the new movie and the old movie, because the new movie obviously won't win. The old movie is fantastic, and Gene Wilder and Zero Mostel, how can you beat those guys? I don't care if you get Nathan Lane, Matthew Broderick. Okay, movie's dead. So, anyway, Mel Brooks I really, really enjoy because these are just such classic setups, and they're sort of classic jokes. What really makes... And the funny thing, Blazing Saddles, okay, I watched that recently. That is more shocking now than it was back then. And I'm saying, because I remember watching this as a kid, not like a 5-year-old or anything, but, you know, I saw this movie while I was young. I knew what the quote-unquote N-word was. And whatever, I got through it fine, and I know that people, whatever, in the 70s, Richard Pryor helped write that movie, you know, was doing a lot of the, whatchamahoozy, you know, was saying the N-word a lot and stuff like that, so it's nothing super shocking. It's even said now, but the fact that a movie that big and that public, you know, and did that well, and such a well-known comedy, if you watch it again, this would not fly today. I mean, they would not air this movie. You know, the amount of times that they say that word and the way they use it, and a lot of the jokes, they would not run this movie. And it's really fascinating because of that. On top of that, again, just the very generic sort of cartoony humor, vaudeville humor. The other movie that really stands out to me, well, the other two, Producers really stands out to me. Brilliant concept, love it, just the fantastic setup for a movie. You got two great actors pulling it off, and you just love watching them. And then the other one, of course, is Spaceballs. Love Spaceballs. Again, mostly because of the villains. The villains are so good, and that's what's interesting that Mel Brooks does. He creates these satires. You know, they are basically satires, but he creates these characters as well. It's like he does want to create a story that goes through. And Zucker Brothers sort of do that too, but the characters are mostly there for the jokes. Mel Brooks will actually create these characters like you want to remember these characters and you like these characters. You know, Charlie Sheen in Hot Shots, you know, did great, but I mean, it's just, he's there to be a satire of Tom Cruise, you know. Although, what's her name? The girlfriend of those movies was pretty, she sort of had her own character going, but anyway. But yeah, they're usually just satire. You know, Leslie Nielsen is a satire of the cops from these movies. You know, Bill Pullman is sort of his own character. You know, Dark Helmet is kind of his own character. Colonel Sanders and the president of Plant Spaceball, they're their own characters. They exist on their own. And that's what I really like about Mel Brooks. I like the fact that he creates these characters in this satirical world, and it makes them seem more three-dimensional that way. So it's a very interesting thing to do, to sort of create your own characters that, even if you took them out of Spaceballs, if you took them out of the parody, they could have a movie somewhere else. They could have their own story. So I really enjoy Mel Brooks because of that. Number 6. Goofy cartoons and Tom and Jerry cartoons. I know it's sort of a weird thing to put on the list. I should say the team that brought us the Goofy cartoons and the Tom and Jerry cartoons. But they're both very similar, and I like them for the same reasons. That's why I put them together. The Goofy cartoons, it has to be a sports cartoon. It can't be one where, and it can't be one where he's alone. Though those are okay. The ones where there's a lot of Goofies, like the tennis one, or the basketball one, or could get the hockey one. So funny. The football one here, I'll get to that in a second. It's great because you see Goofy like you don't usually see him. Like, Goofy can look mean in those cartoons. I mean, he can get this really angry face. And the fact that they're all the same, they're all these Goofies, it just makes the world they create much more desperate and sort of power hungry, and they all want to win. You know, it's that great competition that they're all going to go out of their way and fight each other and go through the slapstick just to get the ball. You know, for something so pathetic when you think about it, to just win this game. But it's how far they'll go, and that's very much like sports. You know, just the desperation they'll go, you know, to achieve this goal, to win a sport. You know, when you really think about it, it shouldn't be anything that grand, but we do invest so much in it. And I love watching the Disney cartoons because of that. But like I say, it has to be the ones with the teams. And actually, the interesting thing, the football episode of with Goofy, we actually watch every Super Bowl. We watch it at halftime because we love that cartoon so much. It just makes us laugh so much. So, never fails, always gets a laugh out of us. Just great timing, great slapstick. The best one's got to be the hockey one. That one just, the ending of that is so insane. I actually satirized, if you ever saw Scarface in 5 seconds, I satirized it and used some of those clips. But yeah, so those are really great. The Tom and Jerry episodes. Again, great timing, great violence. The pure lust for violence in these cartoons are just so wonderful. And it's one of those things where you sort of think, you know, whatever, violence, you hit someone, it's funny. No, it has to be done a certain way. There is a great, scientific way of looking at slapstick, you know, for having it done right. You know, and I think you can actually sort of see this with some of the Warner Bros. Like with Tiny Toons. I remember when I watched it as a kid, the early episodes, when someone got hit, you know, the face would get really weird and out there and go, blah, blah, blah. No, that's not funny. What's funny is that when the object looks more solid, when it hits someone, and it really looks like it hits them, and they fly back. You know, it has to really look solid. The person can't look rubbery, you know, and plasticky, because then it doesn't look like the pain is as much. It's horrible to say, but it's the amount of pain is what makes it funny. You know, it is all based on misery. And Tom and Jerry just had that so well. I think my favorite bit is whenever Tom... Well, two things. Whenever Tom screams, fantastic. That's always Bill Hanna doing that scream, if you didn't know that. I think it was Bill Hanna. It could be Barbarian. I'm pretty sure it was Hanna. And the other thing I love is that whenever... Well, Tom has these great eyebrows, if you ever notice this, so it allows for a lot of expression. You know, so when he looks really mean, it's like you want to see him get hit, but you also sympathize with the fact that he wants to either, you know, get a meal, or he wants to stop Jerry from whatever he's doing. But never enough to see him not get injured. My favorite thing that Tom does is whenever he thinks he won the day, he just does this little smile, he goes, and he just sticks his chin out like this. And it's great, and it's, you know, it's just saying, hit me. He's saying, no, come on, hit me. I'm so confident you're not going to be able to hit me, you know, or apply any damage. And then, whatever, an anvil comes and hits him, or something like that. But it's that expression right before he gets hit. And that's what they did best. They did the best expressions just before the violence happened. You know, when someone goes, oh? You know, or looks more angry, like, huh? Bam! You know, they got that down so perfect, and it had such good timing. You know, with the violence. So, and again, those screams are hilarious, but I'm just repeating myself. So, both those cartoons, you know, they have some misses, but, you know, both those cartoons did their slapstick and their timing so well, that, for me, they're just irresistible. I love them. Number 5. Lewis Black. Now, this is the guy at first, and I still sort of do in Nostalgia Critic, I'm not going to lie. You know, I do take a lot from him. This was the first really angry comedian I saw that I sort of said, I want to be like this guy. This guy has something that's really, really funny. And again, it is sort of cartoony, just how angry, his expressions, and I like the fact he can go through like 5 expressions in 2 seconds. You know, it's great. And the way... There's a sense that you can always sort of see the vein in his head, and he's always shaking, even when he's not, like, if you ever notice when he's just talking serious or something like that, like, he'll still kind of shake. I mean, you get the fact this really is an uptight guy, but he has so much fun with it, and the anger, you can always feel like he's trying to hold back the anger, and it always comes out in little spurts, and he wants to let out more, but he's trying to be polite, you know, for the audience or whatever. And again, I think a lot of us can, you know, relate to that. There's a lot of times where we want to say something, we want to say, no, you were wrong, but you're trying to be nice, you're grinning through your teeth, and stuff like that, and at some point, you know, he comes out and explodes, and that's always the big payoff. But it's a great sort of character he's created, even if it is or isn't him. There's probably a little bit of him in there, but I don't know. I think a lot of it's a character. He knows a lot of it's a character. But just the anger that he's trying to hold back, but constantly fails at holding back. I think that's where his comedy comes from, is that he's trying to be dignified. He's trying to be humble, a good person, but he's so bad at it, and he has so much anger, it just can't be contained. And it just kills me. I think if you watch a lot of the older Nostalgia Critics, you can see especially I'm taking a lot from Lewis Black. I think even 1 or 2. Whenever I go like this, I'm taking from Lewis Black. Because I don't do this, because that's his thing. I won't directly steal. But, you know, the pointing the finger, I mean, that's direct Lewis Black. So, very, very funny. And interesting when you consider, you know, sort of how old he is. And when he became really famous for his stand-up, I mean, he was pretty old. He was like in his 40s or 50s or something like that. He still has all that anger and all that angst and so much energy. So, I think everybody likes Lewis Black. How can you not? I wish more would be done with him in movies. I can see him as a main character in a movie. Why won't they give him a movie and, like, write a good script? You know, all the movies he's been in have been terrible. You know, and they're just giving him side parts. So, somebody write a movie for Lewis Black with a good, screenplay, a good, funny setup or scenario, because he deserves a movie, he deserves to be the star of a movie. So, obviously, taken a lot from him. A lot of people can see that. Great comedian. If you haven't seen him before, look him up. Number 4. Monty Python. Everybody knows Monty Python. Anyone that watches my website knows Monty Python. So you can probably see, I've taken good chunks from them too, but I love the surreality of those sketches. I love the fact they don't feel like they have to be contained to a certain amount of time. I like the fact that they feel if they run into a hole, they can just do whatever they want with it. I love the character archetypes they made. I love the jerky character. I love the pompous character. Actually, the one I've grown to love the most, oddly enough, is Eric Idle's really cheeky, optimistic character that he plays a lot. I think he calls him Mr. Cheeky or whatever, but I mean, it's just sort of it's that Eric Idle smile. It's just, oh, everything's gonna be okay, and it's really grown on me, and I absolutely love whenever Eric Idle is on screen, I just start laughing now, because I love the fact you can throw any terrible thing at him, and he'll be fine. He'll be totally okay. He's always looking on the upper side, the bright side of life. So, love that. The animations by Gilliam are just great, and it's funny because I think the interesting thing with Python is that you sort of go from, when you're a little kid, you're going to laugh at it because it's silly. And, when you're a teenager, you sort of get the smarter stuff. As you get a little older, you sort of start to say, well, that didn't work. This isn't really as intelligent as blah, 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 blah. And then when you reach another age, I think maybe around this age again, you have this whole new respect for it, for just how unexpected and odd it is, and I think the animations are good proof of that, because at first it's like, well, anyone can cut this out and just move them around, well, why is this anything great? And when you really watch it, it's like, wow, the surreality that these cartoons are creating are just phenomenal. I mean, they're so bizarre, and they just play with the conventions of just what you're seeing, and what can be done with just layers and, and lines and stuff like that. And it's always sort of going against that convention, and it's a lot of fun. But on top of that, of course, the writing's great, the acting's great. The acting especially is really great in a lot of these. The fact that they'll go from one sketch to another with these weird sort of segues, I think is always great. That's got to be hard to put together. It's got to be hard to always link these up somehow. And they did just a great job of that. And they sort of created their own little world, with them linking things up and running jokes and stuff like that. If you want to learn how to perfect a running joke, watch Monty Python. They were so good at having jokes come back later in the episode, sometimes even other episodes. So, some sketches don't always work, some of them do just fall flat, but I mean, that's any comedian and any great routines, they always have some that don't work. But the stuff that does work is so clever and so... I think a lot of it is just, where did it come from? Where did this material evolve from? And how did it get to this point? The surreality of it is just so wonderful. So, really, really enjoy it. Just great stuff. The movies, of course, are great. Meaning of Life's okay. But they got some great ideas. I gotta acknowledge that. But yeah, just really love Monty Python. I love the sketch work, I love their movies, I love the writing, acting, all good stuff. Number 3. The Simpsons. I think the funny thing about The Simpsons is that, like everyone, I'm not a huge fan of The Simpsons now. I don't really even watch it much anymore. Sometimes you'll get a laugh, but it's mostly, whatever, just sort of throwaway. It mostly just makes you remember the older Simpsons. But when The Simpsons were in their prime, I think it's one of those things where it was so massive and so big and so influential, you sort of forget about it. And it's sort of the same thing where, thinking back, I realized that what I like about this show is the fact, again, much like the Goofy cartoons, everyone is sort of in the same world. They're all sort of power hungry and want, what they feel is coming to them, and they all sort of have this certain level of stupidity. And I think when you make an entire world sort of like that, just varying levels of stupidity, that's fun, because that feels sort of like a social commentary. Like, no, this really is embedded into us. These are just different levels of idiocy, mainly. And that they all are greedy, they all are large, they all are, can be obnoxious people. Even the ones you think won't be obnoxious somehow turn into obnoxious people. There's great comedy in that. And like I said, it's more this world they've created, this world of characters. The Simpsons themselves are actually just okay. Homer starts to get a little grating at times, and Bart's pretty good, but even then, sometimes his stories can wear a little thin. Marge and Lisa are usually pretty boring. Maggie actually is always funny. I just realized there's never a time when Maggie isn't funny. You ever realize that? So she's probably the funniest one, but I mean, they all have the really funny moments. It's the world that they inhabit and that they live around. And again, sort of like Monty Python, playing with expectation, where you think when Homer does something stupid, oh, it's going to be funny because he's going to look dumb. But in this world, it's actually accepted. And I like that. I like this world that sort of celebrates this idiocy, but they think they're being really smart. They think they're being really intelligent. And again, it does sort of create more of a social commentary. Again, South Park sort of did that as well. So I like things more like that. There's only so many times people can act stupid and the rest of the world goes, oh, I never, in various ways. That gets old. It's funnier if you create this world or this environment where this is accepted and it's okay. And then we become the straight people. We're the ones laughing at it. So, yeah, really love the energy. It really did change a lot, and I think all of us really take so much of our humor from The Simpsons. When you really think about it, it's so huge that we forget how much we got from it, I think. And I think growing up with it, and even having it now, as a show right now, it's probably not the worst. It's just compared to what it was, it's not as hot. But we really did get so much of our humor. This generation got so much of our humor from The Simpsons. I mean, there's just no question about it. The way we talk, the way we point out the obvious things, in obvious ways. That's the joke, is just how blunt we are now and how stupid our generation has become, and we celebrate it and stuff. So much of that came from The Simpsons, and their constant use of that. So, like I said, it's The Simpsons. You don't even have to talk that much about it. Number 2. Mystery Science Theater 3000. Now the funny thing about this, remember I was saying before about something is so big that you sort of forget about it. It's just so commonplace. Mystery Science Theater, when I was putting this list together, I forgot about Mystery Science Theater, and I often do. But it is obviously such a big influence. The way they comment on things, and that's all they're doing, they're just commenting on what they're seeing, which you could argue is all satire, but just the way they say things, the words they choose, the fact that they have to fit it in this amount of time, and the fact that I think what's really funny about Mystery Science Theater, I think why it's funny that saying this to a screen instead of reenacting something really works, is that when they say it like they're one of the characters, like let's say a person talks like this, and they made Kevin Murphy just be like, oh, hello, I'm Superman, or whatever, something funny. It's funny because it sounds like they're really putting themselves in the movie, and that the characters in the film just don't even notice. They don't notice how stupid something sounds or something is. And I think when you're constantly inserting yourself like that, that's why it's funny, because it seems like the stupidity of what you're seeing is not even being affected by the logic that you're shouting at it. And I think that's what they discovered and they perfected so well. And I think fitting it in the pauses, whenever a character's talking and there's a little pause in there, and trying to fit it in there real fast, is really good, because that's sort of like, when somebody's saying something and you mumble something under your lip, or something like that. That's what's funny, is the fact that you say something and it doesn't even affect what's going on. It's like, oh, here's some logic for you, it doesn't matter? Okay. Because whatever they're looking at, whatever they're satirizing, is so embedded in their stupid world that it doesn't even have an effect. And I think that's what makes Mystery Science Theater so funny, and the concept of making fun of these movies so funny. And again, the writing, just great, you know, Mike Nelson, Kevin Murphy, you know, all those guys, I mean, are just so good at what they do. And the deadpan, the various ways of delivery they have, you know, the deadpan, or the excited, or imitating the voice, you know, just works so well. And like I said, obviously watching Nostalgia Critic, you can tell I take a lot from them, just putting the audio over them. They really started something. The same way the Simpsons started something with that sort of new line of humor, I think they really started something too. And they, like I said, I think we often forget about it, but it's another thing that it's so embedded in our minds. Now, Simpsons is probably a little bigger in what influence it had on everybody, because that was more popular. But with Mystery Science Theater, the people that get into it, it sticks with them, and it has an effect on their sense of humor. And I guarantee anyone that watches it and enjoys it, like, it will affect the way they say things, and the way they look at things, and the way they talk about things. It's just, they really found something good with that formula, and they did such a good job using it and poking fun at it and writing for it. I'm sure you all love Mystery Science Theater. What else can I say about it? And the #1 comedic influence is Daffy Duck. Now, I'm sure a lot of you already knew this. In fact, I shouldn't just say Daffy Duck. I should say Looney Tunes in general, with a big emphasis on Daffy Duck. These cartoons, these are some of the earliest things I've ever seen, and I love them. The energy from them, the intelligence from them, these characters are so funny. And the one I love the most is Daffy Duck, because he's the loser. He's the one that always wants to win, and he tries so hard to win, and things just never go his way. And you never know, is it because the world is against him that he's this way, or is it because he's this way that the world's against him? You can play off either scenario. And just the animation, the timing, the writing that comes from these cartoons are so great. Somebody said that if Disney was classical music, then Warner Brothers was contemporary jazz. And I think it's a very good way of putting it. Warner Brothers, you know, Disney's phenomenal, don't get me wrong. Warner Brothers sort of, you know, was like Disney, but they're sort of doing their own thing as well. They sort of had the similar Disney-style animation, but they just did whatever they wanted. They did what they thought was funny, not what they thought other people was going to be funny. And so much good humor comes from that. Just do what you think is funny. Don't worry too much about what other people are going to say about it. And you can just tell, you can sense the fun people were having when they were making this. I think you also got that from Animaniacs. You got how much fun people had just writing this and coming up with the ideas and coming up with these characters. And now, with that said, with Daffy Duck, because there's sort of this, I just call him John K., the guy who created Ren and Stimpy, has this huge thing, maybe rightfully so, about Daffy Duck. There's these two versions. One is, you know, really crazy and jumping up and down going, woo-hoo, you know, just pure anarchy and silliness. And the other one, the more contemporary one that we know, is the jealous jerk. And he didn't like the jealous jerk, and I can understand that. I like both. I think that's part of the, well, what's fun about it is that there are sort of these two versions. And really, as time goes on, it did sort of work that way, because Daffy was sort of going to be the big star. For this sort of Porky was going to be the star, then Daffy came along, he became really big, and then Bugs came along, and he took over the spotlight, and Daffy sort of wasn't as popular. So it sort of made sense to have it go that direction. But I love both. I love the silliness, I love the anarchy, but I also love just the desperation to want to be the star, to want to be appreciated by everybody, and it just never ever works. And the harder you try to make it, you know, come your way, the bigger it's going to blow up in your face. I think the reason we like when it happens to him is because he's trying to take something away from someone else, and he knows he's doing it, he has no problem, he'd almost prefer it. So I think that's why we have no problem when bad things happen to him. I think my favorite Daffy moment, it's another one of those, the sort of that trilogy with Elmer Fudd, Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny, is that they're in the snow, and Daffy keeps trying to convince Elmer, as you know, that it's rabbit season, shoot the rabbit, and the whole episode is just trying to get him to understand this, which again, if he was a hunter, he would have shot them both right away, but, you know, he's not very bright. He listens to all this. And every time, you know, Bugs always has a trick to make it so that Daffy gets shot every time. And he keeps trying to say, no, you shoot him, and he always gets shot. And finally, at the end, he cracks. He just goes crazy. And he turns to Elmer, he just goes,
shoot me again! I enjoy it! I love the smell of burnt feathers, and gunpowder, and cordite! I'm an elk! Shoot me! Go on! It's elk season! I'm a fiddler crab! Why don't you shoot me? It's fiddler crab season!
And he just wails on him. He just goes nuts. And it's just a wonderful breakdown. And I think that's the thing. You never see Bugs Bunny crack. Or maybe you didn't feel, but it was out of character if Bugs Bunny ever cracked over something. And that's why I like Daffy Duck more. It's just this great... He shows the weakness. He shows the vulnerability and the patheticness, and we all like to laugh at him because I think we feel that patheticness as well at times. Bugs Bunny is who we want to be. I think Daffy Duck is who we are. And that's why I like Daffy a lot more. I like playing bad guys more. I like playing the jerks more. I love all of that because they get the bigger laughs. There's much more weakness. I think we see much more of ourselves in, you know, those sad, pathetic people. And I love the good guys. I love, there should be a Bugs Bunny, and we should look up to him, and we should try to be like that. That's wonderful. For me, I enjoy the vulnerable people a little bit more, if they really have fun with why they're vulnerable. So, yeah, guys, those are my top 15 comedic influences. I know there's others out there, but these are the top 15 that had, like, the biggest impact, I think, growing up, and for what I do, these really, like, I'm constantly referencing these guys whenever I'm thinking of something funny. I hope you enjoyed this. That's about it. I'm out of here.